Welcome back to Win the Day. My name's Jacob, and today we'll be exploring the book of Nahum as we see the reality of the judgment of God. One of the most interesting quotes that I've ever heard is that God has no grandchildren. What does that even mean? If I could break it down a little bit, I believe that it means that you personally must place your faith in Jesus. Either you're a Christian or you're not, but you can't be saved based on the faithfulness of someone else. For example, just because your parents are Christians doesn't actually make you a Christian. Well, now, why do I bring this up? Because as I explore the book of Nahum, I see that the faithfulness of one generation won't save the next. One of the main themes that we find in the book of Nahum is that through this prophet, God pronounces his judgment on the Assyrians and specifically on the people of Nineveh. In this book, we're reminded that God is a God of justice and he will bring punishment for evil. But at the same time, we're reminded that God is faithful and he will protect his people. This book takes place somewhere between 663 and 654 BC. The author is the prophet Nahum himself, and he is speaking directly to the Ninevites. Now, one of the connections that I hope that we see is remembering that a generation before this, in the book of Jonah, the prophet Jonah goes to the Ninevites and he tells them to repent, to turn back to God, and they do. But in this generation, the prophet Nahum goes to the Ninevites, and when he tells them to turn back to God, they refuse. Therefore, God says that he will bring their nation down because of their violence and their evil and oppression. Again, one generation won't be saved through the faithfulness of another. A key verse that I want to highlight in this book is found in the first chapter, in Nahum 1, verse 7. We read, "The Lord is good, and he is a stronghold in the day of trouble. He knows those who take refuge in him." Now, here's why I think this verse is important. Because even though God is coming to bring judgment against this nation, we're also reminded that he is still the Lord who is good. And for those who trust in him, he's a place of protection and refuge. So I'll be honest, this book is pretty difficult to read, especially as we explore all the ways that God is going to bring judgment on the Assyrians. It's difficult to understand, but here's what we need to remember. That God is a good God and a God of justice. We can remember that in every generation, God will bring down the nations that are built on evil and violence. So even as we read this book of Nahum, we need to look forward to Jesus and remember what he's done on the cross. Remember that he came to die to defeat every evil nation and establish an eternal stronghold for those who take refuge in him. So I guess the challenge from the book of Nahum is this. Are you taking refuge in him? Remember that the nations of this world are filled with evil, but remember that they won't last. Jesus gave his life to establish an everlasting kingdom, and my hope for you is that you would take refuge in him.